Have you ever wondered how a seemingly ordinary man, Adolf Hitler, ascended to the helm of one of the world's most powerful nations? Imagine Germany in the aftermath of World War I, a nation bruised and battered, its economy in shambles, its pride tarnished. This was a nation humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, forced to accept full responsibility for the war, and burdened with paying enormous reparations. The once mighty empire was now a cauldron of discontent, its people desperate for change and yearning for a leader who could restore their lost glory. Enter Adolf Hitler, a man of modest origins, a failed artist, and a World War I veteran. But behind that ordinary facade was an extraordinary and dangerous mind. Hitler, with his charismatic speeches and fiery rhetoric, managed to tap into the collective frustration and nationalistic sentiment of the German people. He masterfully exploited the prevailing circumstances, promising to revive their economy and restore their national pride. His entry into politics was far from glamorous. He started off as an informant for the German Workers' Party, a small political group. But Hitler saw an opportunity and seized it. He quickly climbed the ranks, transforming the party into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party as we know it today. Hitler's rise to power was fueled by his ability to manipulate the masses. He crafted a narrative of victimhood and vengeance, painting Germany as the wronged party and other nations as the oppressors. He promised to rectify this perceived injustice and make Germany great again. He stirred up fear and hatred, blaming the Jews for Germany's woes, and used this scapegoat to unite the German people under his banner. He deftly turned public sentiment in his favor, using a potent mix of charisma, fear-mongering, and propaganda. So how did a seemingly ordinary man rise to become one of history's most infamous dictators? It was not because he was extraordinarily powerful or overwhelmingly popular from the start. It was because he understood the power of manipulation and the art of exploiting fear and desperation. As it turns out, Hitler's rise was not a matter of chance, but a carefully orchestrated maneuver. But how exactly did Hitler convince millions to follow his poisonous ideology? A master of persuasion, Hitler employed three powerful techniques: ethos, logos, and pathos. These are not inherently evil tools, they are simply instruments of influence. But in Hitler's hands, they became weapons of mass manipulation. Ethos is about establishing credibility and trust. Hitler projected an image of a selfless patriot, dedicated to the welfare of Germany. He claimed he was the chosen one, the only one strong enough to restore the nation's former glory. This carefully crafted persona made people see him as a beacon of hope in a time of despair. Logos is the appeal to reason, but Hitler's use of it was far from logical. He twisted facts, created scapegoats, and propagated conspiracy theories. He blamed the Treaty of Versailles for Germany's economic woes and placed the blame for all of Germany's problems on the Jews. This distorted logic gave the German people an external enemy to blame, fostering unity against a common foe. Pathos, an appeal to emotion, was perhaps Hitler's most potent tool. He played on the fears, frustrations, and aspirations of the German people. His speeches were fiery, filled with passion, and delivered with a fervor that stirred the emotions of his listeners. He painted a bleak picture of the present, promising a brighter future under his leadership. The combination of these techniques was devastatingly effective. Hitler manipulated the emotions of the German people, suppressed logical thinking, and presented himself as the answer to all their problems. He became not just a leader, but a savior, promising to rescue Germany from its perceived enemies and restore it to its rightful place in the world. In the end, Hitler's power of persuasion was not about truth or logic. It was about playing on the emotions of the masses, creating an us versus them mentality and promising salvation. Hitler masterfully played on the public's fears and aspirations, turning himself into their savior. Behind Hitler's charismatic appeal was a relentless propaganda machine. An engine of deception, it was designed to control the narrative, manipulate emotions, and shape public opinion. It was a system that, in the hands of Hitler and his Nazi regime, ran with ruthless efficiency. At the heart of this propaganda machine was mass media. Radio broadcasts, newspapers, films, all were harnessed to disseminate a single, unified message. A message that glorified Hitler, that extolled the virtues of the Aryan race, and that dehumanized those who were seen as enemies of the state. This was not just about controlling what people thought, but also what they saw, what they heard, and ultimately, what they believed. But the propaganda machine didn't stop there. It reached into every aspect of life, even into the minds of the young. Through schools and youth organizations, children were indoctrinated into the Nazi ideology. They were taught to idolize Hitler, to embrace militarism, and to view themselves as superior. This was a calculated strategy, aimed at creating a generation conditioned to conform, to obey, and to fight for the Nazi cause without question. And then there was the fear-mongering. The regime manipulated public sentiment by sowing fear and distrust. Jews, communists, intellectuals, they were all painted as threats to the German people. This fear was used to justify heinous acts, to suppress dissent, and to keep the populace under control. It was a chillingly effective tactic, one that exploited the most basic of human instincts: fear. Yet, the propaganda machine was not infallible. There were those who saw through the lies, those who dared to question and those who resisted. But their voices were often drowned out, their actions suppressed, their lives endangered. In the end, the propaganda machine was not just about spreading lies. It was about control. It was about maintaining an illusion of unity, of strength, of superiority. And in the hands of Hitler, propaganda became a potent tool to maintain his iron grip on power. Hitler's strategies were not unique. Many authoritarian leaders have employed similar tactics. As we navigate the labyrinth of history, we find that Hitler's ascent to power echoes with an unsettling familiarity. The tactics employed by Hitler, the manipulation of public sentiment through ethos, logos, and pathos, the relentless propaganda, and the ruthless suppression of dissent have been mirrored in various authoritarian regimes throughout history. Take, for instance, Joseph Stalin. The Soviet leader, much like Hitler, used powerful propaganda to create a cult of personality around him. He manipulated the ethos of the Soviet people, promising a utopian society while simultaneously crushing any opposition that dared to challenge his authority. Moving across continents, we find another echo in the rise of Mao Zedong in China. Mao, like Hitler, leveraged the power of pathos, tapping into the deep-seated grievances and aspirations of the masses. His promises of land reform and equality struck a chord with millions, paving his path to absolute power. In more recent times, the reign of Saddam Hussein in Iraq bears chilling similarities. Saddam, in a manner reminiscent of Hitler, exploited the logos, using skewed logic to justify his brutal regime. He skillfully played on the fear of foreign aggression, painting himself as the nation's sole defender. These examples, spanning different eras and continents, underscore a universal pattern, a pattern of manipulation and control, a pattern where demagogues exploit emotions, suppress logic, and use propaganda to maintain their stranglehold on power. The threads of history weave a cautionary tale, a reminder that the strategies employed by Hitler were not an anomaly, but rather part of a sinister playbook used by authoritarian leaders to seize and maintain power. And so, we find ourselves staring at the chilling reality that manipulation, fear, and control are not relics of a bygone era, but continue to rear their ugly heads in different forms in different places. History, it seems, has a sinister way of repeating itself. Despite the oppressive regime, there were those who dared to defy Hitler's tyranny. In a world swathed in fear and deception, they were the torchbearers of truth, the voices of defiance that echoed through the darkness, challenging the authoritarian rule. One such brave soul was Albert Einstein, a man known for his genius in the realm of physics, but also for his courage in the face of tyranny. Einstein, a German Jew, had witnessed firsthand the rise of Hitler and the horrors inflicted upon his people. He saw the manipulation, the propaganda, the ruthless suppression of dissenting voices, and he could not remain silent. Einstein used his global stature to speak out against Hitler's regime, warning the world of the escalating danger. He penned open letters, gave speeches, and did everything within his power to expose the nefarious intentions of the Führer. But the path of defiance was fraught with danger. Einstein, like many others who stood up against Hitler, faced dire consequences. His property in Germany was seized, his books were publicly burned, and he was stripped of his positions and honors. Yet despite these harrowing consequences, Einstein never wavered in his convictions. He fled to the United States, where he continued his crusade against Hitler's regime, lending his voice to the chorus of dissent. Einstein was not alone in his defiance. There were many who dared to stand up against the wave of tyranny, each adding their voice to the symphony of resistance. They were journalists, artists, politicians, and ordinary citizens who chose truth over silence, courage over fear. Their actions served as a beacon of hope in a time of darkness, a testament to the power of the human spirit to resist oppression. They were the voices of defiance, the whispers of truth in an era of lies. They risked everything for the sake of truth, for the sake of humanity. In the face of fear, these brave individuals chose truth over silence. Their courage is a timeless testament to the power of defiance, serving as a stark reminder of the importance of standing up against injustice, no matter the cost. What can we learn from Hitler's rise and rule, you may wonder? Well, to begin with, dictatorships aren't born in a day. They grow slowly, subtly, and often under the guise of national security or the promise of prosperity. The seed of dictatorship is often sown in the fertile soil of fear, uncertainty, and desperation. A charismatic leader like Hitler steps forward, promising to restore order, prosperity, and national pride, and the seed takes root. At the heart of any dictatorship lies the suppression of dissent. Freedom of speech and expression are often the first victims. This suppression is often justified by the need for unity, for rallying behind a common cause. Hitler's regime famously used the Reichstag fire decree to suppress opposition and consolidate power. The manipulation of information is another tactic. Propaganda, censorship, and misinformation become tools to shape public opinion, to create an image of an invincible leader, and to vilify those who dare to oppose. Hitler's minister of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, was instrumental in painting a picture of Hitler as the savior of Germany while demonizing Jews, communists, and other enemies of the state. Control is also exerted through the infiltration of institutions. The judiciary, the police, the military, the media, all become tools of the regime, and slowly but surely the leader's will becomes the law of the land. But dictatorships are not invincible. They can be recognized. They can be resisted. Look for the signs: the suppression of dissent, the manipulation of information, the infiltration of institutions. Listen to the voices that dare to question, that dare to defy, and most importantly, question everything. Dictatorships thrive on unquestioning obedience. They fear the power of a questioning mind. Understanding the anatomy of dictatorship is the first step in safeguarding against it. In a world where manipulation is a tool of control, what weapon do we have to resist? The answer lies within us, in our minds, and our ability to think critically. When we take a step back, question, analyze, and challenge the information presented to us, we are exercising our critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is more than just skepticism or doubt. It's an active process of understanding, questioning, and evaluating information from multiple perspectives. It's about seeking clarity, consistency, and logical reasoning. It's not about winning an argument, but about understanding the world and making informed decisions. Consider the rise of Adolf Hitler. His regime used manipulation, persuasion, and propaganda to control the masses. But those who dared to think critically, like the brilliant physicist Albert Einstein, saw through the deception. They questioned the rhetoric, challenged the propaganda, and defied the tyranny. Their courage and critical thinking shed light on the truth, but at great personal risk and sacrifice. But what does this mean for us today? In an age of information overload, where we're constantly bombarded with news and views, the ability to think critically is more important than ever. It's our defense against manipulation, misinformation, and deceit. It allows us to discern fact from fiction, to challenge the status quo, and to resist the allure of charismatic leaders who may not have our best interests at heart. Critical thinking enables us to make better decisions, to solve problems more effectively, and to develop a deeper understanding of complex issues. It empowers us to participate more fully in our democracy, to engage in informed discourse, and to hold our leaders accountable. It's a skill that can be honed, a habit that can be cultivated, and a discipline that can be learned. So let us take a lesson from history. Let us recognize the power of critical thinking in preserving our democracy and safeguarding against manipulation. Because at the end of the day, critical thinking is not just a tool, it's a shield against the forces that threaten our freedom and democracy. As we unravel the dark tale of Hitler's rise, we're left with a timeless lesson. From the ashes of post-World War I Germany, a man ascended to power through a cocktail of manipulative persuasion techniques, propaganda, and the exploitation of fear and emotions. Hitler, like many authoritarian leaders before and after him, harnessed the power of ethos, logos, and pathos to sway public opinion and establish a regime that would leave an indelible mark on history. His rise, however, wasn't unopposed. Courageous voices such as Albert Einstein's dared to defy the tyranny, yet they were met with harrowing consequences. This defiance, this courage to question and challenge, is the essence of critical thinking, a trait we must all foster to safeguard our societies from manipulation. In our exploration, we've dissected the anatomy of dictatorship, revealing a complex web of deception and fear. We've seen how demagogues suppress logic and exploit emotions to maintain control. The strategies Hitler employed, unfortunately, were not unique to him. They've been mirrored across history, from ancient empires to modern-day autocracies. This brings us to the crux of our journey, the timeless lesson embedded in our exploration, the indispensable role of critical thinking in preserving democracy. As we navigate an era of misinformation and polarized discourse, the ability to think critically, to question, to challenge, and to seek truth becomes our most potent defense against manipulation and authoritarian tendencies. The dark tale of Hitler's rise stands as a stark reminder of the pernicious effects of unchecked power and the susceptibility of the masses to manipulation. It's a lesson from history that urges us to remain vigilant, to foster a culture of informed discourse, and to never shy away from questioning the narratives presented to us. By understanding history, we arm ourselves with knowledge and the power to shape a better future. Let's carry forward this understanding and use it as a beacon to navigate the complex labyrinth of our modern world.